Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Excuse my voice, but just trying to get a microphone check out of the way here before we get rolling. So I do see that there's a few people over in YouTube, in the YouTube chat. If you can go ahead and let me know if the audio sounds okay. And for you guys in the other streams, please let me know if you're receiving audio outside of the music. Appreciate it. All right, it's nearly time here. Let's get the music under control. Bring this down, and we're going to roll right into some analysis here. All right, let's just go ahead and pause that. And we're going to get started here right now. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is September 15th, 2023, and this is our Friday market analysis stream. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the quad witching. Well, actually, we're going to take a look at what happened in traditional markets, which is why today's stream is a little bit later than normal, as it will give us time to take a look at the closes for the daily and weeklies on traditional markets here. And there is a 10-minute delay, so we are of course going to start with Bitcoin. Then we will move on to taking a look at some lower term timeframes on Bitcoin outside of the higher term timeframe analysis that we normally do, to analyze kind of where Bitcoin is in terms of our volume-based swing fail patterns and continuation areas that we've been marking right on through just about every live stream. And well, in fact, mostly from this most recent move down. And then as Bitcoin has mean reverted a bit, we can take a look at where price is finding primary resistance. We'll then roll on into taking a look at traditional markets, Dixie and gold. And after we do the main portion of the analysis, I will take requests. So let's get right on into it even. Excuse my voice today. Back to having some issues. Not actually sick this time, just typical seasonal allergy stuff as the seasons are beginning to change by me again. It's never a dull moment here on the west coast of the United States. Now, Bitcoin has clearly hit our support area down here. We already noted this in the last live stream. We had a nice move up off of that area, but we are still seeing this wick over here at roughly, we'll call it, actually, if I can get right on there, it's 26,818. That is the primary local resistance overhead. We can see that in yesterday's price action, we did spike up above it to around 28,869. Nice. And in today's price action, we've seen a little bit of a pullback in the lower term time frames. Now, how realistic would it be to expect maybe a wider pullback? Not really sure. We're going to take a look at that today. And, I would not be surprised if there was a lower term time frame pullback, but it is coming into the weekend. So sideways has been the name of the game on the weekends, with moves kind of really starting in the lower term time frames once we see the Sunday CME open and the weekly officially close for Bitcoin. Now, for me, on the west coast of the United States, that is going to be around 5 p.m. on Sundays. So just note that we have seen the etchings of the early moves going on the opens, and mostly quiet on Saturday and Sunday. Now, of course, since I've said that, there's likely to be some movement, right? In this case, Bitcoin is, it's looking just fine, to be quite honest, hanging out above the basis band so far in today's price action after spiking the upper first, and that was one of the primary areas that we had been tracking, along with our Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart over here. So if you are not watching the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos, I do suggest that you try to find them if you're not getting them directly in your shorts feed or on your subscription page. You can always head directly to the Landy's Crypto Corner page, and you can find it under the Shorts tab. I do suggest that you turn on notifications, as those Shorts videos get buried pretty quickly. So if you haven't seen this chart, we've been calling out the 26K area as the primary overhead resistance when Bitcoin dropped down to the daily support at around 25.1 to 24.8. Nice closure right above that support there at around 25.1. We needed to see a reclaim of this 26K weekly. We got that. Pushed immediately above that basis and tested around this high. That was the next big area to test, around 26.4 to 5. And then above there, the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here around 26.6 to the weekly above at 26.750. Of course, we saw the wick high come in the deeper 26.8 region here on spot price. Now, Bitcoin does need to recover this upper first standard deviation and the weekly here at this 26.750 to go test the upper second standard deviation, which is lining up directly with the monthly overhead. And in this case, that's coming in at around 27.2. I'd give it a little bit of a range around 27 to 27.2. I would initially look out for wicks that break above the upper second standard deviation, coming into overhead resistance at this daily around 27.5. If we did see a closure above the upper second standard deviation that then can get above that daily again, I would start to look for expansion up to this weekly here at around $28,000, and the dailies just above it at around 28.4 to 6. Now, there is areas of interest overhead as well. So if we were to see a breakout above that primary overhead resistance from the breakdown of the range above, then I would be looking for the closing low side structure around 29 to 29,200, up there to the wicks that were holding up the highs originally at around 29.4 to 5, and then eventually 30,000 to 30,300 at this weekly overhead. I do believe above there, Bitcoin goes on quite a run, probably to the highs of the prior range around that daily, weekly, monthly resistance. And, this was an area where I got a lot of pushback from people. People that I know, was not just one person or two people. It was quite a few people saying, no. If it's going to break above 31, it's going 35 or, 33 to 35 and so on and so forth. And I said, this is a daily, weekly, and monthly resistance level. Because we have the confluence of multiple time frames and big time frames for closures up here, I would not be surprised if we just see a dip into this area well, in this case, a pump into this area at 31.8 to 32.4, and then we get some sort of a wider pullback. And that's actually, what we've seen. And, it's not hocus pocus or anything. It's just that when you're looking at the higher term timeframes, just note when you see multiple timeframes closed on top of each other like that. Usually when you break through them, it's a very good sign, of course, for the bulls. If it breaks through overhead resistance like that things are probably going to go on a run. If it doesn't just turn into a bit of a deviation into that area, find it as resistance and then come back down as we've seen. And the same goes for the other side of that, which would be the downside supports, where you're seeing multiple time frames closed on top of each other's dailies, weeklies, monthlies, or weeklies and monthlies at the same time. And we have had that with dailies and weeklies down here with this daily support. No, I have not called it out because it's not. It was more. I'm more focused on the primary supports below from the highs rather than the lows that closed at the same time, because they're all confluent with each other. So this big area did hold up. It needs to hold up. If we did see price fall back below $26,000, I would be looking for this lower first standard deviation to be a primary downside target that the bulls need to hold. And that is coming in at 25.5 to 25.6. And if we did see that area lost, I would be looking right back to the lows here in this daily support around 25.1 to 24.8. Of course, if we did see that lost at that 24.8 region on a daily close, that would be closing below the lower second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. That would kick off expansion to the downside, and I would initially target this next weekly down here at 24.3 to 24.5. That would open up the next target, maybe not immediately, depending on the severity of the breakdown, but that would eventually open up the next target at 23.7 to 24K. And the big line in the sand for the bulls is going to have to be this monthly here at 23.3. If that area is lost, I'm looking in the very low $20,000 region, maybe even lower. We'd have to evaluate if and when price got there. Now, for right now, Bitcoin looks like it wants to try higher. And let's run through the time frames with a Stoch that has pivots. I'm going to be using the BA reverse Stoch, which is by Trader Holly. You can find this in the indicators tab. Just go ahead and search BA reverse Stoch. And this just gives you a number or a pivot number. Now, this is a regular Stoch. It is a close over close stochastic momentum indicator, meaning that it is reading price action. It is not a Stoch RSI. So it is not reading the velocity of RSI. It is reading the close over close price momentum. I find that this is far more of an accurate indicator for pressure, let's call it, or for momentum, of course, to the upside and downside. And in this case, we can see that the momentum pivot for the daily is going to be 25,273. So Bitcoin trading about $1,000 above there, a little bit more actually. And that's a good thing. Now, of course, that is going to update at today's closure, so it is going to move up. I suspect somewhere around that lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. And again, that is coming in at around 25.5 to 25.6. Now, the 2-day, which is going to be closing today, we got some big time frames closing today and on Sunday with the weekly. So I do want you to make note of these areas that I'm going to call out. So on the 2-day here, we do need to see Bitcoin recover that basis. It is currently at 26,900. That will close and move down most likely somewhere inside of this current 2-day wick. After a closure above there, then we're targeting the close opens. Again, that's right there in that overhead resistance area from the daily around the monthly at 27.2 to the daily above it at 27.5. Now above there, we have the wick high into that overhead weekly resistance that I was just showing you over here. That is at $28,000 to the daily above it at 28.426. That wick needs to be taken out. That is now going to be right around that upper first standard deviation. I do suspect between the wick and this upper first standard deviation that we do see them kind of come in line with each other during this next closure. and we do need to see a recovery above there, of course, and then I'd be targeting those lows up here to the upper second standard deviation, which is around that last lower high from the range above at roughly 30,000 to 30,300. Give or take a couple $100 depending on your exchange. The wick high was 30,322 here on Coinbase Spot. Now, the momentum pivot is the more interesting thing here, as we do have an initial cross up and a weak read on the D oscillator there for Stoke. Momentum pivot is 25,300. I do suspect that Bitcoin will meet that criteria by the end of today and get a fully confirmed cross to the upside. This is something that we've been waiting and watching for with the 2-day, as we do see that the 3-day also, it's a building signal. We're not seeing exactly the same kind of a look with just an initial cross, but we are seeing a weak K and D read pointed up, and 25,680 is going to be the number to beat. And guess when that's closing? Well, that's closing today as well. Now, Bitcoin closing above the lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands does give me the bias that it will go test around the basis band at some point, and that is coming in at roughly 27.7. Now, again, this is going to update at today's closure, and I do expect the basis to move down. Where do I expect it to move down to? Somewhere around 27,200 to 27,500, which is where the monthly and daily overhead resistance is above the current weekly that we are just trading under now at 26,750. So keep that in mind, that we do have now, we will have confluence, and we can always go over here to this 3-day chart so that you can really, I could drive home this confluence here, that this basis band is likely to come right in line with this monthly and daily resistance area, maybe even just on the top side of it. So we would have confluence with that and the 2-day as well being very close to price action, and we'd have the 2-day upper first probably moving down somewhere to this weekly area inside of this overhead resistance zone between the weekly at 28K and the dailies above at 28,474. In this case, I've been giving it a range at about 28,4 to 6 based on the prior analysis when Bitcoin was trading up there. The next biggest closures are going to be the 4-day, the 5-day, and the weekly, and they all close on the same day. So we've got a Friday closure for the daily, 2-day, 3-day, and then we've got a Sunday closure for the 2-day, for the 4-day and 5-day, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day. 2-day, daily, 2-day, 3-day is today. 4-day, 5-day, and weekly, of course, on Sunday. Let me get that right before I move on here. Jeez. Now, the 4-day is also pretty interesting, as the momentum pivot is at 25,600, and it is also a weaker signal, but it is crossed to the upside here. So that is a good thing for the bulls. That is what they want to see. Now, the 5-day coming into this weekly close, we might as well look at the 4-day momentum chart here. I'm sorry, not momentum chart, the regular chart with bull bands. We can see that Bitcoin is finding resistance at that lower first standard deviation on the 4-day chart here. Let's go ahead and get rid of volume. It's kind of throwing me off. And if it can trade above and close above by Sunday, then I would be looking at this wick high as being fair game around 28K, and it's likely that the basis band on the 4-day time frame will move down into that area. 28K, it's currently at 28.3, but somewhere in the upper $27,000 to $28,000 region, or low $28,000 region where it currently is. I do suspect at this angle it's probably going to dip down somewhere around 27, 5 to 800 or so. That is just an estimation. I am actually working on a projection for this close over close with the basis band and the by virtue of that, the standard deviations to the upside and downside, of which we have 3. That will actually be pretty cool. I am just in the process of getting that up and running now with this indicator. And of course, you can find this indicator for free. It's linked in the description below every video. And it's if it's not already there, then I put it in the first pinned comment for the live streams and the Bitcoin in 60 seconds videos. And you could just go and it is a private indicator, but you can add it to your charts. There's no fees or anything like that. And it will be publicly released and searchable on the indicators tab here for TradingView pretty soon. But I do want to wrap things up like that, like a projection for where the basis is going to be, where are the bands, that kind of thing, for the standard deviations. Now, the 5-day is another one that we are seeing a similar look, but we actually are seeing Bitcoin trading above the lower first standard deviation, and the basis band is just going sideways. This is what I would refer to as a range setup for the bands, with the lower second standard deviation being around that weekly area that I've been calling out. If Bitcoin breaks down below the lows here at around 24,300 to 500, the lower first is here at 26,232. And the basis is at 28,200 or so. Bitcoin being below the lower first might send this down. I do think that this is just going to kind of float sideways for a little bit longer. And if that area is recovered, then I'm looking to the upper first. And of course, that's where we're getting our $30,000 targets from, along with, the traditional horizontal support and resistance areas. So above there, of course, the upper second standard deviation is coming in at $32,000, just above that 31.8 wick high. And, looks pretty good for the bulls if they can get a closure by Sunday above 26,200. Now, even if they don't get a closure above 26,200 on this current 5-day candle, which would provide for an initial cross to the upside. Now, we do need to see the subsequent next 5-day closure to then gauge if this is going to get a full turn of the K and the D read for momentum. Of course, setting a low is a good way to do that. So, I would want to see Bitcoin actually trading and closing candles above, the 26,822 wick high over here to go test the wick high of this current last big upside move towards the basis, as that would set the low around that 26,800 region. So that's where I would prefer to see a close, to set a low here. And of course, that would beget momentum turning. But even if it doesn't, this will update, and this number is likely to head down somewhere into the low $26,000, maybe even mid $25,000 region. Now, the weekly, of course, that momentum pivot is still headed down below 29,200. And I had mentioned earlier this week, after looking at this prior weekly close underneath the lower first standard deviation, that we are still seeing Stoke catch up from this big downside candle, and I do suspect that we see that price pretty dramatically drop in terms of the momentum pivot. And it's, on Sunday, I do think it's going to drop. We'll, of course, follow up on Monday with that. Well, we can see that the lower first standard deviation is being traded above as well on the weekly time frame here, and that is at 26,228, so right around where that 5-day is as well. Basis band is in the $28,000 area. I do suspect this will keep heading down at this angle. It's right around just below a 3 o'clock angle there. So I'm not really looking for too much more on the weekly until we see that basis band broken above. Then we start targeting the upper first. Of course, this is coming in at 29,700. And then above there, the upper seconds bracket and the highs up here. It's currently below the actual wick high, coming in at around 31,440 right now. And I do suspect that if Bitcoin trades and closes under the basis band by Sunday, which is, kind of been highly likely lately at least, then we are going to see the Bollinger Bands on the downside expand a little bit more. Then currently that's at 24. It's at 24,500 or so for the lower second. I suspect it's going to come in line with that weekly down there at 24,300, maybe even $24,000. And that's, I'm not looking for a dramatic change unless we see closures below the lower second. And in this case, being below the basis is likely to still beget a little bit of more aggressive downside standard deviation reads on the bottom bands, and the upper bands kind of flattening out and just slowly going sideways and down at this point. very, very slight. But you can see that if Bitcoin can hold up here through the weekend, start turning, the 5-day, we already see a turn on the 4-day momentum. We already see, the 3-day and 2-day kind of getting there. By the end of today, I do expect these to get full signals. That doesn't, just because they're getting full signals, by the way, does not mean go long. We just have that that longer term time frame bias being pressure up at that point. And in terms of below the weekly, in between the weekly candle time frame. So from the daily perspective, it is very normal to find the upper first standard deviation after trading down and a downside move. The upper first standard deviation typically acts as resistance. So it's the basis to upper first. And in this case, because of the setup on the Bollinger Bands, even the upper second to upper third, because it's below the last lower high, highest high of this particular move in this range, on the nice mean reversion play right back up through the basis band. So, even if Bitcoin does start to dig its way out, it's paramount that it takes out that high at around that 28,200 area. So now that we've kind of gotten through some of that, let's go ahead and take a look at the volume-based swing fail chart here. Let's go to the volume indicator here. We'll come over here. We will turn on the horizontal raise, and this is remember, for those of you that have been keeping track of this, this was all predicated on the 15-minute time frame, and it was based on that move up. We charted this whole swing fail pattern. When this area broke down, it was found as resistance, and then it dumped out. Technically, if you wanted to get even the higher high up here for an entry, that was this candle right here. Once that broke down, it went sideways and down. This was the highest volume candle on the move up. Once that was lost, it was right back to the lows. Now we then charted this particular move on the way down as well. So with this failed high from that area, from the consolidation to the expansion to the downside, we tracked all the highest volume areas. In this case, the highest volume high, and then the move gets started. So we're just tracking the lows on the way down that are creating highest volume that then sets our resistance for mean reversion. So what we can see with price now is kind of how things operated off of those lows, and the interplay with this move down. So this entire move down and all of the high volume that was set here and then on the lows, and how that is either acted as support from the lows here, or resistance on the way up from this move down. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we are now. Well, you can kind of see we have the lower low down here. So this was a continuation of this move down. And that was after this low was lost. We saw the volume come in here on these candles that are marked. And the white is the wicks, the yellow is the closes here on the 15-minute. And you can do this for any time frame, just keep it time frame specific. And in this case, we saw that the bounce off of that lower low found resistance right on the close and the wick above that close at around 25.8 to 25.9. Initially came back down and found support on these two wicks at 25.6 to 25.550, and moved right up, stopped at 26.232, came down, found support in and around that 25.8 region after getting some rejections off of the deeper $26,000 or mid $26,000 region, held that as support, worked its way back up to 26.232 again. And, held the wick there at around 26.129, found the wicks here as resistance, came back down, find the base of support at 26.129, starts moving through and reclaiming that 26.232, moves through the highs here, which was also high volume. Why isn't it marked? Because it's right around an important area anyway. Once we saw this area swung, found support, it moves up to the next area, 26 rather, 650, and then the 26.7 to 8 area here, with the wick high coming almost into that 26.900 close open there. Now, what we are seeing is that this candle here, this wick at 26.652, has acted as resistance after putting in a little bit of a swing. We see that when 26.465 broke down, we moved down the level right to that 26.232 yet again. And, currently it's already kind of painted a high right here, but it's going sideways above this little area of support at 26.380 or so. If it loses that, then the next big area is again going to be this 26.232 to the 26.129. Below there, I would be looking for a run right back to 26K. That, of course, is a weekly area, and that 25.800. Below there, we're looking at, the lower first standard deviation area, 25.5 to 25.6 or so. Now, when tracking where Bitcoin is and which candle it's on, I do think that that's valuable to go look at. It's the 26.232 that it's currently bouncing off of. And this is the, I believe on the hourly, this might be like the next candle after the first dump off. But this is a pretty high volume candle on the way down here. Right there. 26.232 was the highest volume candle we had seen since before we saw a little bit of consolidation. So nice high volume candle to the wick low at 26.129. And then the next highest volume candle down was actually between a zone of wicks before we saw a close there at around 25.800 and this wick low here at 25.922. So if this zone is lost, then we just step it down. That's where you get the 25.6 to 25.5 wicks down here. And there was a lot of volume that came in on this low. So after this low, this higher volume low became a swing fail pattern in and around here, and then here for higher time frames, which would be around that 25.600 area. Then that area, kind of sent price sideways before the lower low. Now, after a reclaim of that and a nice reclaim of this area over here, you can see that it's just higher volume wicks on the way down. You can mark the closures if you want. You can get really granular even. Wow. And I just don't think it's worth it. Taking the wick low of the move before the buyback up is going to give you a good indication of primary resistance overhead. And the reason why I'm marking, for instance, you'll see the closes marked is because it sent price. We did see bounces, actual candle bounces in those areas. So, so mark the close. Now this guy here didn't mark the close because we already were inside of this wick low, but we marked the close down here because we saw the bounces. In this case, it's just straight down. The last actual low term time frame bounce was a little doji over here. And that was a close open, and that is marked. So that is kind of the anatomy of this move back up. And you can see that above 26.900, I'm looking for a move to around 27.5, to be honest. And because there is higher term time frame resistance and the upper second standard deviation before we would see price get to around 27.5, which is the close open up here from this failed swing. The daily upper second standard deviation takes priority over that area. So we have also that monthly at 27.2. But I would not be surprised in the lower term time frames if Bitcoin does recover above 26.909 here on spot, that we see a nice run up to the mid $27,000 region, even if it begins to pull back below there, and the lower second or the upper second standard deviation and the monthly overhead resistance. So something to keep in mind if we do see an upside move, over the weekend or something before we talk again on Monday. All right. I hope you found that useful, that information. And we're going to move on to traditional markets, as today was the quad witching, there is still expirations every week. So we will see adjustment coming into next week, but this is the big one. Lots of money rolling. In this case, we did see a pullback on Dow. Nice high volume here in comparison, which is to be expected. But Dow has not really done much, in my opinion. Not much has changed from Wednesday's live stream here. It did hit the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands, and then came right back to the mean here at the basis. And we just got to wait for next week. Now, this was a higher high. The high's technically not really locked in until we see this. It's most likely, well, it did close below the open here, so technically it's a high, but you want to see this close open and wick taken out to really confirm it. And that would be below the basis, right into that 464 area. That would, there is an upward trend line here. I don't really care too much about trend lines. I just have it on here for reference for the much longer term trend. If we did see it break down though, I'm more looking at this last low at around 34,291, and then the low below it, because that's the big area. If this breaks down, it's probably going to turn into a much wider move down. At least at minimum another 300 points, and this low is coming in at right around 34,030 bucks. So I would be looking for another 300 point drop, maybe even down 400 points or more to this high and these lows over here. There is quite a lot of swings in that area, so I wouldn't be taking it as a given that it's just going to fall off the map. This is simply just tracking this, these wicks, and trend lines are customizable. I can even go here and be like, look, the trend's still intact, even if it goes down to the lower first. Like it's just a reference, so that I can see where the primary uptrend is coming from. I'm not tracking it for trading. There are some people that do. I will tell you that usually they end up front running the trade when they're using trend lines. So, and if you're front running a trade, it's often you'll find that you end up out of position for a little while, and you better have a resilient mindset and belief in direction, or else people end up paper handing those positions. In this case, we would also see a Stoke cross down below 34,682. Where did it close today? Close came in at 34,618. So there will be an initial cross to the downside. I'm not, I would say that we have to see price develop next week. You're going to see lots of like, look, it's a double top here. It's a consolidation. It was a big downside move. It's trying to chop around a reverse trend. Now it's just a matter of, can it complete a trend reversal? And this is, this last, high area to take out would be, that 35,100 area. The primary area to hold to the downside is still this low over here at 34,000, and 34,200 at this low, 200 to 300 rather, below the lower first, is just kind of giving you the indication that it's either going to test down here, because we've already tested this top side. So coming into next week, I would wait for Monday to start really presenting options, if you will, for what is going to be happening. Is there still going to be liquidity moving around on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, as preparation for the fourth quarter, as that begins. Preparation for the fourth quarter is kind of already done in the books, but really start seeing the results from that preparation in terms of liquidity movement within the markets. In this case, the weekly is still above that basis band, so there is room to the downside. Now we will see this move up a bit. Basis band on Dow is at 34,200 to 300, so it's really right around that last daily higher low. And the upper first is still kind of acting as that primary overhead resistance there at 35,000. So until we see a breakdown below there, that's when I start looking for the lower first area. The lows here, if it's not just swung, then I'm looking for, around 33,700 all the way down to this lower first at 33.6. So, and to be quite honest, that's still, just a big range. We could even go lower second and it'd be painful, but 33K basically. But it's not the death sentence that many think it is until we saw, this last, higher low transitionary phase. But I will tell you that, this kind of a structure, when you see this area, this little breakout that's getting rejected just below the opens of the actual all-time high area, and then it's holding support. If it can continue to hold support, it's more likely to go back and retest those higher highs up top, because this is a trend shift around on the weekly. Is it ugly as hell? Yeah, it is, but this is not. It's not in danger yet. Now, if we did see this low down here at 31.5 basically taken out, then I'm looking for a run of the actual lows again. And that's where it's like, okay, game on. This thing is ready to possibly pass that area. But until we see that, I think that all the screeching is going to be for naught. And a lot of the people who are screeching about it are basically fudding themselves and the people that follow them out of actually taking the upside moves in the market. And I think that that's irresponsible. So being more realistic, I think, is the way to go. Let's look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ, oh my God, it's on the trend line. It's almost going to break. And then when it does, it's lights out, right? Is that what Crown says? It's lights out, lights on, lights out. Is that his new thing? All right. So basis band, it did close below there. So logical next area after losing this low, if it does, at 15,138. If it does lose that low, then I would be looking to the lower first standard deviation somewhere around 15,000 to 15,100, somewhere around this guy here, basically. This little close open, we did see the liquidity grab from the gap up. So again, I don't really have an opinion on this until we start seeing it enter this 14,900 to 14,700 area. If it does lose that area, I'm looking right back to this low at 14,600. That's where it gets a little bit dangerous for NASDAQ because it had a really big run up. So it would be a very painful trip back down to somewhere around the 13 to 1400 area, upper 1300 area rather. So 13,185 to realistically, if it lost this 14,300 area, it's going to take a leg down to around 13,800 or so. That's not the setup that I'm really looking for right now, but it is something to be aware of. Now to the upside, if it can push back above its local highs here at around 15.5, I'd be looking for that 15.6 to get ran all the way up to 15.7 and this last high around 15.8. If it can get above there, of course, it's going to be pushing probably to the next level. Its highs around just south of 16,000 to the actual high side structure in the deeper $16,000 area. And I'll be honest, from the way that the candlesticks are playing out, could this turn into a reversal? Absolutely. And is momentum against things? Yes, absolutely it is on the daily. 15,388. It closed at 15,200 or so. So it closed below there, and I would expect it to still be pressured down. Weekly, however, is still well above that basis. Nice, strong upside move with this basis band just pointed basically in the 1 o'clock position. And at this point, 14,800 So giving it that bracket at 14.7 to 14.9 is the logical play on mean reversion back to the basis. And it could even come all the way down to, guess what, like 14.200 or so at the lower first. But below there, it could drop all the way down to the lower second at 13.5. Again, that's a big move down, but this was a big move up. So, and realistically, I would be looking for primary support around that 13.5 if things really did fall apart. Again, that's a long ways away from where price is trading right now. So keep that in mind. Weekly is going to be down below 15,530 still. Of course, this is going to update, probably be closer to 15,3 to 4. Maybe it gets a little bit more aggressive to the downside there. But I wouldn't necessarily count on it just yet, as it's kind of near the midline. Let's go ahead and take a look at SPY. Yep, much like I had mentioned, it's just gonna. I felt like it was either gonna take out the last low or it was gonna chop sideways. It chopped sideways. It even made a little bit of a higher high here. So ugly pattern, lost the basis. It's right around the low. If it does drop this low over here at 442.75, then I'm looking for the lower first at 440. Below there, then I'm looking somewhere around the lower second, which is coming in with this in line with this wick low and close open area at 437 to 435. Below there, then it's a run back to the actual low of this particular move up, and that is going to be around 432, 433 area. That's going to be 433.37, but as long as it's above this 430 to 432 area, which is this low over here to this line basically at 431.73, so 432, I would tell you right now that this is a big consolidation. If it was to lose that area, of course, then I'd be looking for a much wider move down. It is going to be pressured down on any closes below 448. That number will update. I suspect it's going to be somewhere around 446. So coming in on Monday. The weekly, of course, that basis band is around 437 right now. Of course, that is going to update probably around 439 to 440. You know what? This might actually just tick up little by little. Where was it last week? So it's 435. It's doing about 2 points a week. So it's probably going to be around 439, 440 when it opens up on Monday. And price is fine till there. If we did see this low drop, then we've got a lower high and a trend break to the downside there at that 433. If that is lost, I'm looking back down to the lower first here at 424 to the 420 area. And below there, basically 424, 425, we could call it. Below there, then I'd be looking somewhere around the lower second, which is likely to come in line with these highs around, 412. So I'd say like 410 to 412. To the upside, upper first is kind of keeping things held down here. That's coming in around 450. If SPY can push up above there, it's still got to beat out that 453 to go run the local highs here at 455 to 460 around the upper second standard deviation. So, the downside angle on Stoke is going to be intact on closes below around 450 anyway. I suspect this is going to move much like the basis band is moving up about 2 points a week. I suspect until we see some kind of a significant low put in, the weekly Stoke is going to head down about 2 points until it's right on price action and or price breaks down and it's chasing further. So, oh no, what happened? Okay, everything reloaded. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at Dixie. Okay, Dixie, keep pushing up. Now I mentioned this that that it could that even though it looked like it wanted to put in a high, after we saw the evening star up here to a morning star below, basically right here I was like, even though it's putting in it did lock in a high, I want to see more bearish divergence build. Well, if it does put in, did a evening star to morning star, and then now it's got a bear hammer at the high here. If it does break down, look at that perfect wick right into our resistance line there that we had the nice breakout close above, right up against that upper second standard deviation, bounced off 105.09. If it does lose that, then we've got another high. Well, if we've got another high, we can look here. We can also see that we haven't even started mean reversion on BBWP yet. So fun. If we do see another high put in, though, that would be another drive of bearish divergence, as this would be a higher high in price, lower high on RSI. So keep that in mind. I like to see, there's one drive. I like to see 2 to 3 drives, maybe even more for a longer term. Depends on the strength of the trend. You want to see it really build up. In this case, this is really the first bear div that we've seen in a little while, and we want to see at least one more. And we can see that with that, Stoke still stayed in the bullish control zone, rather, re-entered the overbought zone. It is crossed to the upside. 105.31 would turn it down. It's trading at 105.32. So now, if it does get an initial cross back to the downside, we need to see follow through on the Monday candle. And in that case, you basically want to see it putting in a high. So it will put in a high below 105.09 now. Back above the wick high here at around 105.43. I would expect it to go test around the 105.60, 105.70 region, and then start digging into this high overhead at the 105.80 to 106 area. Now, I will say I'll be a little bit more detailed with this one and go into the 2-day. Still vertical on the 2-day here, which is not closing until we've got Monday, Tuesday of next week. No, it's going to be 3 days from then, so it's going to be Wednesday. And it's still headed up on any closes above 105.10. And now you might be thinking, well, so it's got pressure up on the 2-day and probably pressure up on the 3-day. Well, the thing is, if it puts in a high on the daily, at Monday's close, or Tuesday's close, that's likely then going to lead into, especially if it's closing below 105.09 for the 2-day, then that would be an initial cross back down. And the 3-day is pivoted at 104.89. Now the 3-day is closing with the next 2-day candle as well. Excuse me. You can see that the 3-day is right up against that resistance for the upper second standard deviation as well. And that is at that 105.80 to 105.88 region. The 2-day is also up there. So very likely that if Dixie does not put in a high on Monday, that it's going to try that for that area. Same for the 4-day here, which is closing at the end of next week, or Thursday of next week. No, it's going to close. Well, it opens up Monday. Yeah, so we'll have to close Thursday next week or Friday next week. I don't know. We'll just have to do the calculations. I'm getting a little tired already. I was up early this morning doing a lot of trading. So let's see. Yeah, same for the 4-day. It's all coming into the same area for the 5-day as well. And, these are still looking just fine and healthy in terms of momentum. 103 is the area to turn the 5-day and weekly to the downside, and the 4 days there at 104.24. So it's really about watching how this daily develops and waiting for another high to get put in on divergence and possibly a third drive. So that would mean higher highs. When looking at gold now, gold did quite well in one of the areas that we had previously spoken about. When looking at gold, I had mentioned that on any, if the basis band's lost, bulls want to see this wick hold up. And that would be around the lower first on a close. We did see it hold up on a close, and gold reversed. Now, I would want to see today's candle close above 1921.51. It's currently at 1923.57. that would be a good look for the daily. Nice little reversal. Come back up. If it can pass these wicks around 1930 and that upper first standard deviation around 1933, I would look for a run for 1940 to 1950 up here by the upper second. Pretty simple analysis here. It's trying to chop its way out and reverse this trend. This would also be, this would be your typical your typical higher low structure. So you got your downtrend to your lower high, higher low, and then you want to see this high get taken out, and that high is at 1951. So if it can take that high out, then this will have completed a very nice trend reversal at a key area of support at around 1893. Daily showing a cross to the upside on any closures above 1925. We are not seeing bullish divergence off of this particular move, so it could spend some time chopping around and trying to dig itself out. Let's look at the 2-day. 2-day is 1922. Of course, that's closing next week, and so there's still time there. It's below the basis band on the 2-day. Let's go ahead and look at that weekly then for gold. Yeah, as I said, being above the lower first, good to try and give it a chance to test to that basis band. Now, if it does lose the lower first at 1913, I'm looking for this week's low to get ran again. So next week, if it loses that lower first at 1913, looking for around 1900 to get run again, down to this prior low by the lower second at the 1880 to 1890 region. But if it does trade up above this week's high at around 1930, we're looking right to that basis at around 1940 to 1950. So the weekly is still going to be pretty interesting to watch, as well as that pivot was at 1902, and we did see it tagged. That was the pivot to turn Stoke back to the downside. This is a fairly weak signal, but if this can really start getting rolling here towards the back half of the month, maybe this starts to change structure on the weekly. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk about the high's in, the high's not in. The high only would have been in on the weekly if gold had closed below this open here and preferably below the lower second standard deviation. This is right up against support. So even if it did print a high technically on your indicators, I would say lower seconds probably a pretty good reversal zone. So we are likely to see this when this updates for gold as well. The simple moving average is around 1930. I suspect it might just track sideways. So 1930 is going to be the big pivot for gold on the weekly, and the daily looks, for RSI, it's already getting its early indication here on a close that being above the 1920 simple moving average is pressure up above the midline. Next big area to go and test. And again, this is an area. It's not necessarily a given that it has to test it directly, but the bullish control zone above, which is coming in at, guess what, around 1948, 1950. So there's our confluences. Drop 1915 again, 1913 and 1915. Probably going to go test 1900 and lower. Get above 1930. Probably going to test around 1940 to 50 and higher. So that is my read on gold there. And that's going to do it for the primary analysis today. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the various chats that we got going right now, because there is more live streams. I'm streaming out more than normal. I hope that the audio sounds okay. Because I have quite a few more streams going than I normally do, and I haven't really set this up for this kind of bandwidth. I'm lucky I have a fiber connection, but still, even then, for the resources on this particular computer, which is not the newest thing in the world. It does sound okay? All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and kick the music on, let you guys catch up. And while doing so, let's go ahead over here. We'll just start it over with Sky Chariot on the Synthwave playlist from Streamlabs Music. I'm not plugging them for any particular reason. It comes free with the software. All right, so if you do have any questions or TA requests, go ahead and get them in the chats. Oh, you guys are packing up over there. Yeah, you're done for the week. Yeah. No requests from you guys. Yeah, you're done for the week over in the shop, huh? All right, cool. So, Jimmy, tell those guys that we'll do a stream next week. We got one-on-ones for the guys getting ready for their Series 24 and 57s. So we'll have a little bit of a follow-up. Just make sure they're getting their exam ready. All right, cool. Yeah, take care, guys. They're getting out of the office over there. Cool. All right, you guys have a great weekend. If you guys need anything coming into Sunday CME, give me a call. And for you guys over in YouTube, hello. We've got Bobby. Hello, Bobby. We've got Mr. Large. Hello, sir. Spin. And No Name. Hello. Wait. Are you in both? You are in both. Okay, cool. So we do have any questions first for anybody? For those that are left in the other stream over there? Let me know if you have any questions. And then for YouTube, if you have any questions, if you don't, questions, go ahead and put them in there. Let me read through the chat here real quick though. So, request, Bobby said he wants to request a few S coins, and it's good to see Spin. I think Spin's been in the past few here. Good to see him here. Check side. Let's see. Okay, your scalp. Bobby says he's scalping, and on the other screen he's watching B. Okay, cool. So you want RSR on Binance? Yeah, we can take a look at RSR. No idea what this is, so I'm sure you want USDTP on Binance, or does it even have it here? It does. 15-minute is lift off here. Now, I will tell you that this high is the high to beat right here. I could tell by the wick and that it was a higher volume candle. This high, once broken, you're probably going to see this thing, leg up. There's really nothing to the left of this outside of this resistance over here, which I think is where it's knocking its head. Let's go ahead and get that wick on there. So that's coming in at, oh god, it's one of these coins. 001958 is the primary overhead resistance right now, at least on the 15-minute chart. Let's go ahead and look at the daily. So that's the current high of the day. It's trying to dig itself out of a pretty nasty downtrend here. Being up against the upper second standard deviation on the daily, it might start pushing up a little bit further, but until it sets a higher low, well, I guess you could call this equal lows, right around a base of support at the wicks there at 001675 or so, just kind of an average, or 1643 down here. So, being above the upper first standard deviation closures will, obviously pushing up against that upper second are going to get Bollinger Band expansion to the upside here. More aggressive would be if it can take out that 1958 area. There is a high and an order block just above at 2021, and it is above this high. Where's the next big area? Yeah, in fact, that's going to be right around this order block over here. We have a low. So what I'm pointing at here is there's an order block over here on the daily. There's a low and there's a high all around that 2020 to 2022 area. So, and that is around the upper third standard deviation. So that's kind of where I'd be looking. In fact, if you can observe this with the bands you can observe this with the bands pretty easily, is that unless you're seeing really tight compression, it's kind of been, you know, dipping into these areas and then finding the upper second area as resistance and the lower second areas as support on those bigger reversals on the downside. You know, we got a couple day reversal here, a couple day reversal here, all the way back to the top side. Found the lower second and third as support, and then nice couple day reversal there. Comes back down, finds that lower second as support. Kind of tracks sideways again, right back to the lower second, and now it's running it the other way. You know, this could be its structure break. I would be looking at this next primary low overhead at 2022 if it can get above that 1958 high. But what does it look like? That's just my initial, and it's got nice bullish divergence. A couple drives, many drives of it now. The bullish control zone is kind of going to be where it's been topping out, at least in the last few that it's hit that area. If it's going to get I can't even get the number. Jeez, this is how this is going to make it difficult. How many decimal places do you want? All of the decimal places. This is a true S coin. Let's go 8. 8 was probably too many. Bull control zone is basically 2027. So it's right around that area that I was just pointing to, around 2020. 2027 is going to be, yeah, it's still got to close and reclaim this low that it's on right now, which it previously had found it as resistance 2 times basically. In yesterday's candle, now it's trying to push on through to the next low side area. If it can reclaim 1933, then, you know, it might throw some spikes up into that 2020 area. And above, I mean, it's already above this low. It's above this low. It's pushing to try and close above this low today. This is the big one, 1933 if it can. Then we look to the next low. That next low also has a high there, and it's got order blocks all around it. So order blocks here, it's got a low, it's got a high, and there's an order block right there from the way down. So this is a big area of interest around 20, I don't even know the number, 0.002000 to 0.002031 or so. Above there, then you start tracking this next low, which is around 2185, and then you could take the high at 2272, and then the next high, so on and so forth, 2234. Then the big one overhead is going to be 2354. That's going to be the big one because it was found as resistance, it got swung, and then got tested again and failed each time. So that's my take on that. Now the daily says that, you know, it's got some juice to the upside. Might have lower term time frame pullbacks. Even got a little reverse spooky ghost. You know what I'm talking about with reverse spooky ghosts. 12 hours getting a little hot to trot. 27. 8 hours getting up there. 6 hours getting up there. 4 hours getting up there. Well, 4 hours just had a fresh turn. 1937 is going to be the number to beat. Where's it trading at? 1949. So I'd watch this 4 hour because it's liable to throw some bearish divergence here soon if it doesn't just continue past this high on RSI, and that's going to spell for probably a pullback to this most recent low in the basis. And a lot of that's going to have to do with this this last high up here as well. What you see is there's 2 primary highs. Like if you were to take the this helps you on the 15 minutes, so we can pick out the primary highs. And then we have like a breakdown. So we see this big 4 hour high here. We see it swung and closed above, and then it tries to push up further. Now if we go down to the 15 minute, you can see that this was a big area of volume of volume on the way up. So we've got this area down here from the move up. Where was that high put in? Yeah, that's basically 1894. So 1894 to the low. So you got a zone 1866, 1894, and the areas that it's currently trading in. 1894 is this guy there. Yeah. So you got some primary areas here. So 1866, 1894, and 1935, and then of course this current wick high at 1958. So if it can hold this area, if not, you can step it down to some of these highs in here, closes, so on and so forth, and line it up with your bands. Lower second standard deviation taps are fine on the 15-minute, but if it does start to reverse trend, you need it to hold 1894. Otherwise, it's gonna be playing on the weaker half of this range up here, and being up against the upper second standard deviation on the daily, unless Bitcoin takes off. I mean, this thing could go right now. The way the 15 minutes kind of popping up here, it's going to be a little bit more dicey, by the way. He says his entry is at 1899. So basically, you took the last confirmed reversal off of like this lower first after it reversed off the lower second. So you took this consolidation. You saw the move down, holds it, resistance, holds the lower second, drives to the upper second, holds the lower first, and then puts in a low. Basically, that's the play it seems like you might have taken. That's a smart play. That was a smart play. It's a good way to read bands and momentum. I suspect momentum was also looking like it was going to turn at the same time. Coming off of, there's kind of like bull divs everywhere, bear divs everywhere, because it is such a, S coin. So there it goes. It's trying the high again. And now if it can pass this high, because it's a big volume candle. If it can pass it on a close, it's going to keep trying higher. Now, whether that turns into a deviation would remain to be seen. Because it would, it's basically you clear out all the shorts here and then you close above it and get continuation, or it swings this area, closes back below this higher volume candle and then continues down. But so far, that area that I talked about just a moment ago with the stepping it up on that daily is really going to be the main targets to the upside. If it can close above the upper second standard deviations, we're looking at continuation. Okay, so I hope that helps. One last one from Bobby here says, yeah, it's going. I mean, it's kind of going. It's got a little ways to go to get to that 0.002 cents, which is really the big area, I think. There to basically 230 cents or 2030, something like that. Whatever I had said earlier. You want to see BCH? Really? BCH? Okay. BCH it is, sir. Got you. USDT perps, I'm assuming, sir. On Binance, correct? Yep. Okay, let's go. Yeah. So, jeez. This thing really moves like a shit coin, man. Oh, I finally swore. This thing is... leave it to Bitcoin Cash to make me actually swear. Yep. This thing is basically dead. I don't even know. In terms of use case. Like, I don't really know how else to put it, to be honest with you. So, we've got the high volume high. on the hourlies here. Oh my gosh. This thing is just right up against its resistance. So it basically it tagged this this resistance over here. Now the big thing is I'm going to use the hourly for this because the 15-minute moves like crap. This guy here to the actual high. So let's see where we're getting that resistance. And then we've got the low down here. Cool. And the low is on high volume, so that's good. If I can actually mark the low, that's good enough. So yeah, basically the current high is right around where the previous high was. So it's since breaking out into this area, after reclaiming this high volume candle right here, and then reclaiming this high volume candle, it's moved up and it's now found support on this most recent high volume high. That's what you want to see for a move up. You know, I mean, short term, like really short term, if it can get above the basis at about 215, I'd be looking for a couple bucks up to the upper first around 216, 17, and the upper second. But this is compression, and it's really not until we see closes above this high at that upper second on the hourly around 219. Would I look back to this upside area in the, you know, to go run this high somewhere around, you know, 225 to 228 up here, maybe even 230 for a swing. But if it does break down below this higher volume reclaim of this wick high, you know, it's likely going to go test this last low at minimum at like 205, and that's coming in at 210. So then I'd be looking down to around, you know, might find support to swing at around that 210.50 area, you know, to 209. But if it starts to break down and close down there, then you got to pay attention to this low around 205. Below there, you know, there's this consolidation. If it loses the 205 consolidation, then we're looking to the low side around 200 bucks again. But it's trying to pick itself back up off the floor here on the hourly. It's getting a turn on momentum. I know you're scalping. 213 is going to be the momentum pivot. What's the 4 hour looking like? 4 hours holding the upper first rather, and it's been tagging through the upper second and third rather is what I was trying to say there. 220 would turn the 4 hour back up. So, you know, it's weekend price action. It's tough to tell what's going to happen. It moves like such garbage, man. I mean, when it moves, it moves. You can make money scalping this thing. It's just you better be right and have tight stops if you're wrong. But, you know, you can make some good money off the movement of it at least. But yeah, that's my primary assessment with this. I hope that helps. I haven't been really tracking. You know, this is just a cursory look. Nice bounce off the basis, to be quite honest. I'll give them that. I'll give the old Bitcoin Cash that much. That's a decent bounce off the basis band on the weekly. If it can put in a high, it's going to do it at around that 228 region. Test that upper first around 247. You know, we're in log scale, so big numbers. And it moves like absolute garbage. So, but absolute garbage that's tradable. I mean, at least it's moving, right? So, you know, above that like 250 area, this thing's probably going to run like 300. And I suspect, you know, if we're seeing altcoins behave like that and they actually do hit those targets, it's likely Bitcoin is doing something very similar, breaking out to some of the areas that we talked about to the upside earlier in the stream. So, and 232 would turn the weekly back up. There's a bit of a meme trend line regression here. So, you know, you could always be looking at this and like, it's still going to come down, but it'll reset. And when it does, it's moon time. It's moon time, baby. No worries. Oh, look at that U shape, 112. Yeah, this is Binance Perps. Those things been around a lot longer than that. So, yeah, it looks fine on the daily too, 188. So just be careful you don't get chopped out on high leverage in those lower term time frames, because this thing just moves like a very low liquidity S coin. So, but when you're on the right side of the trade and your stops are tight and you get out of the consolidation, you start seeing those expansions. It's you can make some good money scalping this. So, any other questions or requests from anybody? I do see that there's quite a few people. I'm getting differing numbers here. I've got quite a few people in the YouTube chat right now, though. Not too many people speaking or chatting. I do have quite a few. Only got 3 of you chatting, and I see quite a few more watching. If anybody wants to jump into the chat there and put in a request, you're more than welcome to. And I will try to get to it. But it is a Friday, so maybe people are just tuning in, tuning out, depending on where I am in the stream. Let's go ahead and go back to Bitcoin, and I'll let you guys catch up for just a minute even. And then I think if there's no questions, I think I'll be calling it a day. You're welcome, Bobby. Bobby says one last one. Sure, go ahead. Your altcoin for the last few days? BLZ, of course. I was going to say, it's been just about every stream you've asked me about it, and then I have seen you charting it recently as well. I will go ahead and get that up here. BLZ, USDT, perps, I'm assuming as well, and that's where we have already previously charted it, if I remember correctly. Yep. Hey, guess what? It swung the area that we talked about. And it is not getting past so far the highs here. You know, it did get re-expansion up here. I don't know if I can even read. I mean, it is respecting candle structure slightly. This thing's probably going to keep going, to be quite honest with you. It's above the upper first. It's if it closes above 15.76 cents, it's probably going to keep going up, or at least testing higher on wicks. You know, trade, especially if it starts closing back above this wick high, it's going to be expansion to the upside. So and that wick high is 15.82 cents. So, you know, lower term time frame pullbacks, daily's looking fine. Momentum 1306, basically 13 cents above there. It's fine. 2 days probably still up 15.15. What's the 3 day looking like? 12 cents. 4 days at 12.26 cents basically. 5 days 14 cents. Weekly is 11 cents. There's so much bifurcation because it does move so quickly. Obviously lower liquidity. But the daily's fine. 12 hours probably getting there. 15.2 cents. 8 hours turning 16 cents basically. 1607 for the 6 hour. 4 hour is 15.59. So I'd keep an eye on the 4 hour and under, to be honest with you. 1580 is the 3 hour. 2 hour we're looking at 1552. Yep, hourly is turning down though below 16. So I'll be honest, you know, it's looking more like a lower term time frame pullback. The only way that I'd be looking at this as like a wider pullback is if we start seeing like the daily breakdown below this wick that it's literally, I mean, when was the last time we talked about this? Was it Wednesday or was it Monday? I don't remember when you asked about this, but above basically 15 cents, it's probably fine to keep testing in and around this highs, around these highs rather. If it does pass and close above this 15 1582, then I'd be looking for another run at the actual highs here at 1636 and probably higher, probably expansion higher, to be quite honest with you. If we look left, is there anything interesting above here? No, in fact, it's finding support on this high over here already. Yeah, it's gonna be like, you're probably looking at lower term time frames because these are all giant wicks over here to the left. Man, what a freaking hell of a coin with this huge liquidity grab up top and then just new lows. It's above there. It's right around this, you know, kind of order block area. So you could say like 16 and a half to 17 cents, probably the next bigger area, and that would be around this high as well in the low 17-cent region, but that also gives you giant wicks up to like 20 and 22 cents. That's really what I'd be looking for if this can keep chopping its way up. But we could see that it usually, I guess this one kind of chopped its way up. Nice big move. This is the biggest move we've seen in a while on this thing outside of these liquidity grabs on the way up. And if it can hold, you know, above this candle here at around 12 cents, this thing's looking pretty good to stay up here for a little while at minimum. But the moment it loses that 12-cent high, it's back to like 9 cents, 8 cents, and stuff like that. I can really only speak to the higher term time frame moves, but because this thing is right around that wick high that we'd already previously called out. It swung it a few times. If it does get a daily closure, I mean, this 15-minute looks like it could fall apart. But it's also around the lower second. It's probably going to throw some bull divs all the way down through here. Man, what a garbage ass RSI that is. Oh man, all the algos that are trading this thing. Oh my gosh. There's probably so many bots trading this thing. That's why you're getting price action like this. It's like right around a pretty important area on high volume. That's why you're seeing this. So I'll dip in above, grab liquidity, come back down, and then chop, 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 chop. That's algos. That's almost like, that's like a smart grid trader bot or something. That's what, turn off all the bots and this thing probably nukes. But yeah, for right now, I can't make heads or tails of it. It's right up against a really important area. So it's either it breaks above here, starts closing above there, starts getting a little bit more expansion. Then again, it's right up against the upper second standard deviation, which is also, you know, very close to reversal. So I would track it very closely. Daily still has upside potential. 15-minute, you know, it could reset here pretty soon. Watch that 4 hour. Because that 4 hour is probably going to be dictating things a little bit more than some of the higher term, than even some of the higher term time frames in terms of scalp available moves. So it's all the same areas, you know, about 1520 or 1582, then looking to run the highs and higher. And below 15 cents, probably taking a leg down into the mid to low 14s. Excuse me. But I am starting to lose my voice here, so I'm going to let you guys go. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe and have a great weekend. Monday, you know, I hope it takes its time getting here because I need some rest. It's been a busy trading week, and I will talk to you guys, of course, again on Monday, and I will have a Bitcoin in 60 seconds video later today. So please go ahead and make sure, if you are watching those, give it a like and a share if you can. It really does help, or even a comment on there. Likes definitely help in terms of engagement, so that it shows it to more people. If you like a video, they've been kind of stagnant, but that's kind of par for the course of being a smaller channel. You go through periods of very quick growth, and then stagnation, and then very quick growth again. But if you can help me get those out there, either sharing them or liking them if you are watching them, watch them on YouTube. That's actually the place that I'm primarily focused, even though I am putting them up on x.com, formerly Twitter. But I do want to thank you guys again. You have a wonderful weekend, and I'll speak to you again in the Bitcoin in 60 Seconds videos. And, of course, I will speak with you on Monday during the live stream. So with all of that said, Landy out. Take care.